were talking about is you made a move from New York to California. And you mentioned that you were reminded of your race, basically, when you moved to California. But you didn't really get into detail. So,
Yeah, so yeah. Now this, like, if you want a personal anecdote, so I grew up in Minnesota. I was born there in '85 and grew up in the '90s. Minnesota has a wonderful tradition of progressive politics. It's empowered people like Ilhan Omar, and Keith Ellison, and there is true genuine progressivism there, balanced with genuine provincialism. But on balance, I'd say it's pretty good if you're talking about middle America. That said, I still grew up as like always the only brown person and wherever I went. If I saw an Indian person in the grocery store, like I would tell my mom.
okay.
So I lived like that for my whole life, and I got my sense of security and my identity by going back to India. And really, I think I identified more as Indian than anything. And until I moved to New York. And in New York, suddenly I started to realize that I had been living sort of as a second class citizen a lot of my life, despite being socioeconomically advantaged. My mother was a doctor, my dad was an engineer, I went to good schools, etc. But I was always a little bit less than wherever I went because I was brown. I was ultimately off-brand
So
white,
wait, but
you know?
what does that mean specifically for you? How did you recognize that? What did you see that made you?
I mean, I went to a white boarding school. Again, don't want to talk about privilege, where my roommate my entire first year of school called me a sand nigger. And that's he wanted to talk about caste system. He was pretty unpopular himself, but he realized, the brown kid can be below me. And that's how he positioned himself. And I literally didn't have any friends for most of my time at that school. Just
Okay,
because,
that's okay. Well, that explains a lot there.
yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm just a man is an island. That's how I'll live my life. And in every, like, I was referred to as the smelly Indian kid. I'll have you know, my superpower, if I have the superpower, is actually that I don't get BO.
I know, like I know that about you. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of like, what is that?
Weirdly, I don't get BO.
It's like, how do
So
they call you
that
that?
was
What
like
did
very
you
much a
say?
racial stereotype I labored under. And it was on every level, that this sort of like was baked in, that you're less than, you're not white, so you're not that great, basically. And then I moved to New York, where I lived in an incredibly multicultural city, and I kind of just forgot that I was brown. And I did, well, I felt a celebration of being brown, in that people were, in some ways I would be more popular in some circles because I wasn't white, because people didn't necessarily want to be around the dominant caste. And I also was able to just kind of forget about my skin color, because no longer just wouldn't deal with stupid questions and comments. Like, like really juvenile shit, like you ride elephants. And just telling me I smell like curry and various other stupid shit like that people will deal with their whole lives. Um, and so in New York, I entered a completely progressive place where, I would still encounter those like racist, backwards elements, but they were the other.
Hmm.
I was the in group, they were the out group. And that was such, like, for me, like a celebration of my own humanity, and it was amazing. And that is what truly empowered me as a minority, to the point now where I am not scared to speak up,
Yeah.
where I will openly talk about race in my nursing station. I don't give a shit if it makes someone uncomfortable. In fact, I want to make you uncomfortable, because if you're experiencing discomfort, that means you need to hear it.